Hey my dear friends, Sam Haymart with Test Driven TV. Today we are test driving the 2024 Ford F-150 Tremor, and a well-loaded one too. It's got a lot of stuff on it to talk about. So I'm going to show it to you inside and out. We're going to take it for a drive, and then I'm going to tell you what I really think. Okay, my friends, let's talk about the truck we've got, because there is a lot to talk about here. And I have to say right out of the gate, it's been a long time since Ford has given me anything but a fully loaded, most expensive possible version of their truck. And this is no different. This is a 2024 F-150 Tremor, which Tremor has in the past been a package you could add to certain trim grades with some extra off-road bits and goods. Now Tremor, like some of the other models in the Ford lineup, is its own trim grade, and it's pretty high up on the food chain. Base price for a Tremor is about $64,000. This one is a 402A package, which is what they call the Tremor High. All of the stuff on it, it's $81,000 and some change. Woo! Bring your wallet, man. So that's a pretty big chunk of change. Here we are, we're looking at what we get. First of all, as you look at the front, you can see there has been a mild redesign for 2024 on the F-150. New headlights, new grills, slight tweaks in the sheet metal to make it look a little bit more fresh. On the Tremor, it has a unique grille that's got a good rugged look to it, orange accent across and down in the lower bumper. You can see LED fog lights. Now, the bumper on this one is a special bumper, part of the 402A package. It is a modular steel bumper, an upgrade. Same bumper essentially that you're going to find on the Raptor. One of the big benefits of this is not only is it tougher and more rugged, but it is set up to make adding accessories a lot easier. Things like brush guards, a winch, LED light bar, things like that. And down below it, you can see that this also has a pretty robust skid plate down there, a bash plate, so that you're not immediately getting into the weeds. Coming around the corner, this has some pretty rugged looking 18-inch alloy wheels and 33-inch tires, General Grabber 275/70 tires. And these are actually some pretty good tires. Try pricing these on the internet. They're not cheap. So it's a nice upgrade over the stock tire on the truck. Tremor F-150 vent detail there on the fender. Now coming down the sides, this has some pretty good running boards on it too that are standard with this package. Very grippy. Your boots are not going to slip off of these. They are not power running boards, which I think is a good thing. I will say though that I'm not necessarily a big fan of running boards actually, unless the truck's really high up. If you do a lot of off-roading, you're going to tear these off. I'm much more a fan of having rock rails on a truck that is destined to be an off-roader. But if you're just buying this truck because it's got the nice tires and wheels and the better suspension, you're not going to be doing a lot of great off-roading. These are some pretty good running boards. Before we go out back and look at the rear three-quarter view, the color on this is actually the antimatter blue, and it really looks almost black in most light. Here we are literally in direct summer light, and it's hard to pick out the blue even in the video. So if you like dark blues, this is it. Out here at the back, I want to show you a couple of things that are new for 2024 and very specific to the packaging that we've got here on this truck. First of all, new for 2024 is the Pro Access tailgate. Now, it opens in the standard way that we're all used to, and on this tailgate deck, you'll find all of the cool stuff that Ford's been doing of late. There's a big measuring ruler built in, and there's also openings down here so you can use clamps on that and clamp down work if you're using it as maybe a job site workspace. But the ruler I see right there, I see laying a fish out on that and measuring your fish, posting a nice picture of that on Instagram to show all your friends what you just did. But this also opens a separate way. It is hinged in the middle like a barn door, and instead of being hinged on the outboard edges like we've seen in other cases, it's actually separated in the center. And the point behind it, at least Ford's selling point, is the fact that if you have a big trailer here with, say, a jack or a propane tank or something like that, this allows you to be able to get into your cargo box a little bit easier, a little bit more discreetly, without having to lay your tailgate down on top of some apparatus that might be laying down there. And I've done that before. It sucks when you screw your tailgate up. And especially on these with the cameras and all of the electronics in them, it's a bummer, right? So this thing does open all the way up 100%. And it has detents in it. So even on a windy day like this, it can stay put where you want it. And the only thing I would say about it is the fact that it's a little bit flimsy. When you slam it, the whole thing kind of jitters a little bit. And when you lay it down, you can tell you've got multiple pieces there. So for my money, I'd probably still want a regular tailgate, as I'm not a big trailer person, but if you are, this is probably welcome news. Now, looking down at the rear bumper, this has a couple of things I like. Because we are in an off-road oriented truck, I like the fact that the exhausts are sort of put up into that bumper. There's cutouts there. That means they're protected a little bit, right? If you're really getting rough in the bush, you're not going to be tearing those things off or bending them up quite as easily if they're tucked up in there like that. And next to those, some pretty robust tow hooks. One last thing is, because this does have this tailgate and we can't have the big integrated man step like a lot of the Fords have, this also has this, which is an optional item that pulls out, and then you can step up in and out of the cargo box when you're using the smaller door or maybe just over the top of the gate. This also has optioned on it the hard tonneau cover, which is a pretty expensive tonneau cover, but it is one of the nice factory accessory ones that fits flush, and it really looks like it belongs there. The interior of our test truck here is very well outfitted because we are in the 402A high. The Tremor comes standard with a nice cloth and vinyl combination seat. Here, these seats are a finely done leather with orange accents, Tremor embroidered logos in the backs, and they are both heated and ventilated, so they're nice. They're very comfortable, and they go along with a lot of other upgraded trim that you'll see throughout the interior. Soft stitch trim on the dash, on the door panels, and upgraded metal trims, plastic trims along the dash panel and on the door panels. The dash itself made up of a digital instrument cluster ahead of the driver, and that's fully customizable. This has a head-up display, which is one of the reasons why the overall dash structure here is slightly different than you might find on other Ford F-150s that don't have that. It kind of beefs up the whole area so that they have room to put that in there. The steering wheel, of course, leather covered with its orange accents. The center stack has a large 12-inch screen, and that is standard in all of the F-150s, but this one does have a lot of upgraded back end, and we'll talk about that separately when we get to the infotainment system. Controls all along the center stack here, hard controls for both the infotainment system as well as the HVAC, the drive modes, the trailer brake controller, and the Pro Trailer Assist. All of the stuff that this truck has, along with lots of power ports, 12-volt AC. And down here in the lower center console area, there is a place to charge your phone and wireless charger, and there's also power ports down there for various USB connections. The center console here, because we are fully upgraded, has the productivity suite, which is the office desk arrangement. You can press the button on the shifter here, that floats away, and then out folds a nice desk and workspace so you can set a laptop on, maybe put a tablet and paper, do some writing, whatever. It's a pretty nice little deal. Although I have to say that this shifter, just watching it, listening to it, it's just so gonna break one of these days. I hate to say that. Storage down inside here is massive. There is enough room. If you were using this as an ice chest, you could easily put at least 2 6-packs of soda in there, maybe even more. Lots of water bottles and a bag of ice. It's massive, and it's got provisions that you can actually put hanging file folder type accessories in there. So again, you can use this quite much like an office. Very nicely done. Above me also is the optional panoramic roof. The front section does open, and you can adjust the cover to be open just for the front half or the full Monty. The back seat of the F-150, as we've reported before, has a lot of good points and a lot of things that aren't so good. And the first thing I'll tell you is the fact that there's plenty of space back here. You can see it. I can spread out. I could have somebody 7 feet tall sitting in that chair there with the seat all the way back, and I would still have plenty of space. And the amenities back here are good too. Here on this particular truck, with the option package that it has, I have heated seats back here, and there are air vents back here. There's USB ports plus an AC port back here for charging. A lot of amenities to keep everybody happy. The one thing I would say that I'm not very happy with is it's not very comfortable. The seating height is good. My knees aren't perched up too badly for the rear seat of a pickup truck, but this particular seat bottom doesn't come out very far, and it isn't designed in a way that supports you. It's very flat, and it doesn't really seem like it's shaped for human beings. So the comfort level, it's not super uncomfortable, but it's more park bench like than some of the competitors out there. As far as versatility, this does fold upward in a 60-40 split so that you can access storage underneath. There is a flip up divider down there that allows you to fill that up and really use it for a lot of different things. There's a lot of space to store gear under there. Or you can simply have it flat and have these seat bottoms up and be able to really fill this space with a lot of gear, a lot of goods. There's a fold down armrest here in the center with cup holders, and of course this seat is designed for 3 cross seating with 3 full seat belts. And as we wrap it up with the interior here, I do have to apologize for all of the noise. I have the engine running, the air conditioner on. It's over 100 degrees right now in the shade here in Phoenix, but it's very comfortable as it is. This is an interior that is very well done. I have praised the interior on the current generation F-150. They've finally gotten us above that point where they used to have really cheap materials for the base model and really expensive upgraded materials because you spent up and added trim and options, and there was a noticeable difference. Now these interiors have a consistency across the board, and they are a lot closer to feeling their price than they've ever been. Very well done, lots of versatility, lots of creature comforts, and for the most part, great comfort. This interior gets 4.5 out of 5 stars. The infotainment system here is the standard 12-inch touchscreen, but it is upgraded here in this particular model with the B&O 14 speaker audio system. It's fully featured with Android Auto, Apple CarPlay. It is wireless in that regard, Sirius XM radio, cloud-based services, navigation, the list goes on. And it has a 360-degree camera system that works excellent when you're in the city and parking and doing all the things like that, but it's got several camera views that you can use for hooking it up to a trailer, and when you're off-road out on the trail, it can really help you out when you have close items. It lights up and lets you see what you're almost going to hit. So it's a nice system that works very well. It's almost seamless in its ability to sort of detect when you need to be looking at something and pop up and show you. So this is an infotainment system and user interface that I've praised in a number of other Fords. It works very well. The graphics are good, and the sound quality from this audio system is really good. Even using Apple CarPlay from the phone, it's quite good. So I'm happy with it. This system gets 5 out of 5 stars. All right, kids, show and tell is over. Now it's time to actually take a drive, or maybe that's the next part of our show and tell. So we're going to start out here on the trail since that's where we are. And this is a great place to just kind of get a feel for the suspension and the overall handling and all of that this truck offers. The Tremor does offer an upgraded off-road suspension that is better than what the FX4 has. It's got specially tuned off-road shocks, front and rear, monotube up front, twin tube in the rear. And so the overall tuning and the springs and the dampers are really more geared towards getting out here in the rough. And the first thing I'm noticing already is this feels great. It's got a nice isolated and well-damped ride. And with a fully boxed frame, this just feels very solid. And it doesn't beat you to death. It's got a compliant enough suspension that going through the wash, going over these ruts, rocks, things like that, it's got that Jeep Wrangler-esque kind of nice float to it. And I like that in a vehicle that's, I'm told, is for off-roading. And so even on like big bumps like this, not jarring at all. So that's great. This does have a lot of off-road traction toys. It's got the full boat of software here. It's got a locking rear differential, and with the 402 high, it also has the Torsen limited slip front differential. This also has the trail turn assist. So if we were doing tight turns on trails, you could use that, and it helps you get around those corners a little tighter by way of all of the traction control and the braking and the computer. As far as trail riding and trail driving and doing some off-roading, this suspension I find is much better than the FX4, certainly much better than the standard F-150 suspensions out there. It just handles better and it feels better. But the next part of our test is the desert washboard road, because even though it's technically not off-roading, this rid washboard surface can make Even the best of them feel like a big POS. And what I find out here is that this is a truck that has gotten better with age. The first aluminum F-150s I drove out here on this washboard road back in 2015 were awful. And I mean, flimsy feeling, rattling, shuddering messes. This truck, you can tell that they spent a lot of years and a lot of millions of miles of testing, tuning the suspension, the bushings, and really working on getting this thing to feel closer to its price tag, and it does. This is a magic carpet out here, and that goes in part to these off-road tuned shocks, and it goes in part to these upgraded tires. A lot more rubber under me than we're gonna find in some of the other models of the F-150, and that shows up when you take it out in the dirt. That gives you a lot more isolation, it gives you a lot more bite. This is a very slippery gravel road, and I can sail around these corners with a little bit more confidence before the traction control is gonna step in, the stability control, because these tires have a little bit more grip on these gravel corners and things like that. So there is a benefit to spending up for things like tires, all-terrain tires. But it's also very quiet, you might notice. Not only am I not getting rattling and shaking in this structure like we used to get, but it's quiet. So well done in the way of getting this better dialed in for being off the pavement. On the pavement, this is a truck that drives every bit the same as any other F-150. It is a solid, bolted together well ride, because it is. Body on frame trucks tend to feel like a big heavy brick, because they are. And I think really the conversation for this particular truck is the fact that because this does have these all-terrain tires, sometimes that causes a little bit of extra road noise, a little bit less precision when it comes to being on the road and on the highway. And in the case of these, I haven't noticed that they're very loud going down the freeway, for instance, or out on the highway. I don't really hear these tires the way I've done some other all-terrain tires. I will tell you that in crosswinds and out on the freeway, I have noticed that these tires don't quite track as precisely as perhaps some street tires would. So there's always that, but they feel pretty good for the all-terrain tires that they are. It's a very quiet ride. This is a noisy pavement out here. The noisiest thing I hear out here is wind noise more so than road noise. The suspension tuning that this has with these off-road shocks and springs plays well out here on the road. It doesn't get too soft and too boaty like, say, a Jeep Wrangler would, because they tend to lean more towards off-road than on-road handling. It's a nice balance. They have done a good job of making this a truck that performs pretty darn good everywhere you take it. So I'm pretty happy with this chassis. It gets 4.5 out of 5 stars. So now it's time to talk about what's under the hood, because we haven't talked about that yet. And I love the fact that Ford found it within their honor and their goodness to give this a standard 5-liter V8. Something that's getting to be pretty difficult to find in the full-size market, a V8. Everything's going to turbos and V6s or inline 6s. And so the fact that we even have a V8 available here is getting to be kind of a novelty. And it's a good old-fashioned V8. Well, kind of. By that I mean it doesn't have a turbo. It has direct injection, port injection, dual overhead cams, 4 valves per cylinder, variable cam timing. It's mated to a 10-speed automatic transmission. The transfer case here is a 2-speed, and it's got the normal controls. 400 horsepower, 410 pound-feet of torque. That's a lot. It's pretty good. Cattle guard. And so if you watch my videos, you know the question I always like to ask is, how does it go? So we're going to come to a complete stop, and we're completely like out here in the middle of nowhere. There's nobody around. And I'm in 2-wheel drive, so we'll see how this goes here. Ready? And go. Woo! Good old V8 sound. Woof. And 60. Yeah. I love it. I love a V8. I like this V8 too. It's a good V8. I love it in a Mustang. I love it in a truck. And it works pretty darn well. And this 10-speed automatic, yeah, you'll love this 10-speed. Don't worry about too many gears. You can tell it's not overly shifting. It can skip a gear here and there if you don't need to have all of those gears at once. And this sound and this power. And it's worth noting that this does have a different exhaust system on the Tremor, so you can hear this. It's just a nice deal. Now, the fuel economy on this, you could see the fuel economy numbers there on your screen. I got 15 with it this week, and it does have auto start stop, but I disabled it. There's a button up here, in most cases driving in the city, because the air conditioner gets all kinds of gym sock warm, and that's no fun, especially here when it's over 100 degrees in Phoenix. But this is a great powertrain. I love this engine. I love this transmission, and virtually anything that I've tested it in, which has basically been a truck and a Mustang. You can get the EcoBoost 3.5 V6 in this truck if you choose, if you don't want the V8, but this comes standard. Take it, man. This powertrain gets 4.5 out of 5 stars. All right, my dear friends, now is the point in time in our review where we have the last conversation, which is about value and competitiveness. Is it worth the money? Well, $81,000 is quite a lot of money, I gotta say. And I'll be honest with you folks, when I first saw this price tag, the first thing that came to my mind was, geez, you can get a Raptor for that. You can. You can start looking at the Raptor when you're spending this kind of money. Yes, it's maybe not quite as well loaded as this, and this does have an unnecessary packaging of options. You can get this for $64,000, $65,000, but when I see this price tag, I think, damn, you could get a Raptor. And while this is a pretty well done off-road package, much better than the FX4, which is barely anything, honestly, compared to what's here, it's a good, well put together machine, but it ain't no Raptor for $81,000. And honestly, if I were spending $81,000 and I wanted, the off-road stuff, I'd just do that. But that said, very well done truck, okay, and the quality's good. It's got a lot of bells and whistles on it. Even if you got the standard Tremor, it's still not a stripper. It's pretty high up on the trim grade scale, right up there with Lariat and above XLT, if I'm not mistaken. So it's pretty well done, and so it's got a lot of capability, and I like that. But when I look at value, I've got to put a score on this, folks. $81,000 is just too much. My gut feel is this truck, as tested, should be about $65,000, no more than that. And the base Tremor ought to be less than it is. I don't know where that should be, maybe 59, 60, but I just think it's out of line. And so I put the value score at 3 out of 5 stars. When you put that in with everything we've already talked about, we're at 4.3 out of 5 stars for the total review score. Still quite good. And if it had not been for my skewed, opinionated ideas on pricing, why, it might be quite higher. So, but if you do have 81 grand to lay out on a truck like this, it's not an uncommon price, as it were. This is a pretty well done machine and definitely worth a look if you're looking at off-road oriented, well-loaded trucks. So there you go. If you like what we do, you can see our latest review right there. Better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel right down there. Either way, stay tuned.